I used to wear my heart on my sleeve, and my boss said to me, "Look, Nick, this is a business. This is not personal. What we liked in our practice is the fact that the agile coaches who have got the battle scars, should we say, of being in the trenches. You see CVs of the perfect projects.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what went wrong? I want them to tell me the problems they've had and how they've overcome them and what they've learned.
Welcome to the MD podcast with me, Martin Hartley, the Managing Director of Emagine. We're a professional services consultancy. We specialize in providing high-value, low-population SMEs to the financial services sector. Being a leader within the world's largest banking organizations is aspirational. However, few make it to the top. The Emagine podcast will offer interesting, insightful, and frank discussions on the biggest issues facing directors and divisional leaders. The show aims to inspire and educate future leaders by telling the career stories of those today. I can't wait for today's episode. I'm joined by Nick Foster, who's an SME and the head of Emagine's Agile practice. So there's a little bit of a different spin on this one because we're going to talk to Nick about his career journey and then obviously what he's doing now as the head of our Agile practice and his plans for that practice moving forward. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey, Martin, thanks.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Okay, so we're going to stick to the traditional format. So, tell us a little bit about your career history. Where were you born? Where were you from?
So, born in Kent, Garden of England.
Absolutely.
Career history, went for Royal Naval interviews for leadership roles, didn't get in. So, came back, thought, what do I do now? So, I started GC Avionics and was working on anti-submarine warfare software, as well as the Boeing 777. So really enjoyed that. But I'd always had this urge to work in a city since I was a young child, really. And I sort of sent off 150 applications, I think it was. Didn't get one response. I got a lot of, we'll put you on file type responses. So I went contracting. So I went across lots of different software companies, helping them write products. One of the guys I work with founded Piston Heads, which is a well-known website now. So he's become very famous and eventually ventured back to the city and interviewed with a number of banks. Got to luckily work on the trade floor at Dresdner Kleinwald. So came in with a couple of developers, a quant, and wrote pricing and volatility software for the FX options desk. We really enjoyed that, did that for about a year. Didn't really have anything else for us to do after that. So I then moved on and joined Credit Suisse.
Nice. Okay, so a couple of things from that. Part of obviously the podcast is to give back to the next generation of future leaders coming through. So always one thing that I find interesting when guests come on is talking about their setbacks. And what that did, how they reacted to it, what the thought processes was. So tell us a little bit about your mindset and the thought processes around when you got those setbacks to how you overcome them to obviously still go on to have a really successful career.
So for me, I like a challenge. So didn't treat them as a setback, I treated them as I'm going to get there eventually. And it was around, well, what route can I get there? So I knew that if I got experience and had a past history of excellence in a particular field, that I'll be able to get through to the banks eventually. So I built up my career, built up my experience, built up my reputation. And through contracting, I got into banks and then became a full-time person. So effectively, I suppose you say I'll get through the back door, because one of the blockers I had was I didn't have a degree.
Okay.
Came out because I didn't get into the Royal Navy.
Yep.
Too late to apply to universities. My college lecturer said to me, Nick, you're very practical anyway, why not do a HND instead in computer software? So that was the route I went. So I got a lot of rejections around that. But no, the way I approached it was, it's a challenge, I'm going to get there eventually.
Absolutely. So it's a mindset aspect, isn't it? Making sure that doesn't knock your confidence. Naturally, it's going to, but it's about making sure you get back up again, dust yourself down.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So you joined Credit Suisse. We're at what, 2002 now. You're there. Really good career there for 13 and a half years. Worked with the global head of derivatives, trade management technology. Talk us through your experience there.
Yes, it was. I think it's a lucky experience. A lot of my experience was there was a brand new division set up called derivatives IT, and when I joined, I got to be part of that division, and its objective was to one, remove all spreadsheets from risk management, create a foundational trade management system and a foundational component for risk and a foundational component for cash, and really stabilize the architecture for the business and make it regulatory compliant. And so we enjoyed creating new software, creating brand new systems, getting buy-in for that, migrating old systems, eliminating legacy. And my experience expanded from software developer to team lead, to bigger teams, to running programs, work streams, as my SME knowledge and my experience and my leadership grew. But I think the two biggest things I think I learned in that environment was relationships are so important. So it's one of my biggest career enablements was my relationships. Really found getting to know people, understanding their problems, solving their problems, brought me closer, got the trust I needed, and built those relationships. As well as mentors. I had some fantastic mentors in the organization. Taught me I used to wear my heart on my sleeve, and my boss said to me, "Look, Nick, this is a business. This is not personal. If you're being attacked politically, treat it as a business rather than a personal attack." And changed my mindset. And as soon as I grew into leadership positions with seniority, he also said to me, right, when I was promoted into his role and he went and did something else, he said to me, "Nick, this is like running a business. You have clients, you need to take care of it, you need to control the costs, you need to sell what you do." And it really changed my mindset of running a department in that environment.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's crucial to what we do. It's a people business, and I think that's hence why you work so well at Emagine, because it's ensuring that everything runs smoothly, everyone's happy. We deep dive in to do a good fact find to understand the problem, because if you don't understand the problem, you can't solve it.
I think talking of problems, the biggest problem I had was, as the team evolved, as the bank evolved, as regulatory reform evolved, the teams became less motivated. They were always a great delivery team globally. They'd always met deadlines. They all worked really hard, worked weekends if they needed to. And because we lost this, derivatives IT got broken up, they lost that feeling of being a part of this thing bigger than them.
Yeah.
Compensation was also coming down. And then as the organization shrunk, the opportunities to get promoted was coming down. So the motivation was dropping. My costs of testing was going through the roof, more and more manual testing. I had to adapt to change that was very unknown at the start. A lot of regulatory projects don't really know what we want to do. We know we want to do something right, we've got to deliver something now. And by that time, it was too late to adapt to that. And my production issues were going up and user satisfaction was coming down. So I knew I had to do something. This was around about 2012. So I knew I had a problem. I had many problems. I knew I had to solve it. So I started talking to my ex-boss, who was at JP Morgan, people at Bank of America, consultancies, a guy called Zohar, who was at Credit Suisse, who was running a very agile department. And they asked me what my problems were, and they sort of articulated how Agile could solve my problems, and technical hygiene and engineering excellence. And I decided to make a change. But before I did that, I did all the training. So I did all the Agile training that was an offer at Credit Suisse. I then said, right, I'm going to make this change. Got my boss's buy-in. His boss's buy-in. I don't think my boss quite understood it at the time. He said, "Oh, you're doing extreme rad." So it's not quite like that, but we can call it that if you want to.
Yeah.
My other boss thought I'd joined a cult because I was so passionate about making these changes, and obviously got their backing to make the change. I hired the 2 coaches, Agile coaches that are internal, who were doing the training, and embarked on a transformation of my entire team, and felt out of control. Everything that, completely felt that I used to control this, and now we're empowering everybody else to do the prioritization, manage the work. And I felt a little bit out of control. My leadership team helped me, the coaches helped me with that mindset and helped me sort of feel better about it. And we continued. And the change in people was astronomical. I had very experienced guys. One guy was probably the best Oracle developer I've ever met. Sat there with his headphones like yours on every day, just listening to music and doing his Oracle stuff. After the transformation, he saw a massive change. He used to do Java development at home. Nobody knew that. And he also wanted to experiment in other development. So he changed from this isolated silo person into being part of a bigger team, to doing Java, doing HTML, doing C#, doing the whole shebang, and communicating, and everything grew. So the collaboration in the teams grew. Also the competition. So I set out on a vision of how much automated testing I wanted, and how many, how we was going to bring down this technical debt, and the people just bet on it rather than me telling them and measuring them. They started to compete with each other. We've got better testing than you.
Nice.
We got better testing than you, and it created this culture of competitive, getting better, and really being proud of being a developer again.
Yeah.
Rather than just hitting a deadline, it was about how we can do the business some good. And we also brought the business into each of the sessions, so they'd give them context on what they were working on.
And that really helps, doesn't it, if you get buy-in from all round?
Yeah, so the business saw it. They thought, what's all this whiteboards with post-its and everything else on? But when they started coming up to the floor, they was going, oh, there's my bit of work. And they could see it transparently working through the system. Oh, it's in progress. Who's doing that? So Ainsley's name was on it. So how's it coming, Ainsley? So it really created this different culture for across the business and across technology. And the results were, in sort of 6 months, production issues started coming down. We started becoming 80%, 90% deterministic of what we promised to deliver, we deliver. We still had issues to resolve, but it was a journey, and we got a lot better as a department.
Great. It's interesting, isn't it? So how, and now the majority of banks have some form of agile transformation going on. So that obviously leads me to your time at UBS. So 2016, then you start UBS. Tell us about your time there.
So by the time between UBS, Credit Suisse and UBS, it took a year. I actually trained and qualified as an exec and life coach, which I really enjoyed doing, but didn't see it was feasible as a business then. So I then joined UBS and worked in the risk side. So testing the models for the risk and calculations of the RWA, exposure management. So I did that for 2 years while I decided I really wanted to be a executive coach still. So I left in 2018, set up my executive coaching business. And then in 2020, during the lockdown, I thought, what have I enjoyed about my business? It's been 2 years. I really loved, coaching people, the people relationship side. What I didn't enjoy was I wasn't part of a team anymore. Didn't feel like, that energy I get from people around me. So I spoke to James Tucker at Emagine, and his question really surprised me. Was normally it's, we've got this job open role for you, or there's something going on around this particular area, but it was like, well, what do you want to do? And I had some thoughts, and we discussed it, and then we created the Agile practice. And we've been sort of helping our clients solve problems not just using Agile, but really saying what's the problem, how can we help, what can we change to make sure you solve those problems and measure the success criteria there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key difference, isn't it? Is like, obviously, I work very closely with you. I work very closely with James and the guys within the Agile practice. And the one thing that I hear time and time again from clients is that we don't want a consultancy or a model where you come in and dictate to us, you tell us what to do. Like, what we like about your guys is that you listen. You're all SMEs, which, sometimes makes it difficult to, get the right blended cost, but ultimately we will always deliver because we won't take on a project that we can't, right? So it's that listening, that understanding, and that engagement where I think you guys are head and shoulders above the rest out there. So tell us a bit more about the practice and the type of work you do.
Okay, so one of the things we like to do, you mentioned SMEs, but one of what we liked in our practice is the fact that the Agile coaches we have got the battle scars, should we say, of being in the trenches, delivering software to the clients, understanding the environment, understanding the constraints of the environment, understanding the political awareness of the environment, as well as the skills and Agile skills to have done transformations in banks and financial services before. So we really pride ourselves in picking the best people for that, and our clients like that approach. We also propose an approach where we try and deliver value within each 90 days.
Yep.
So the client sees absolute value out of their investment. So we try and break things down into 90-day chunks and say, right, what can we deliver in these 90 days? How can we transform, change the organizational ways of working, but also the ways of thinking? How can we change the ways of thinking of the leadership of the teams? And they quite like that approach as well. Yeah. And it's really around, the initiation is around our supporting, especially myself, the senior leadership around the decisioning, because it's a really tough decision to make, to change. When I made the decision to change my organization, I felt I was the only one who could do it. Prove the coaches helping me understand it, but it was still me, it was still my neck on the line. I had a $20 million portfolio to deliver, regulatory deadlines to hit. It was, my neck was on the line, and to make that decision to change your ways of working and your ways of thinking is a difficult one. And a lot of the stuff that I do with the leaders is help them through that. Or I'm feeling more out of control. Okay, so how would you be more in control today? And then sort of get them to understand how they're in control now. Yeah, getting that trust from them as well. So there's a lot of taking the people along the journey of how they used to do it now, and also trying to create sustainability. So we don't want to be there forever. We want to come in, change, but put in place people, grow your champions to be able to take the organization further in the future. We want to create that sustainable model.
Absolutely, and there's a big mantra for obviously you and the practice and the guys, and there's the whole grow your own, right? We want to be in there, we want to help facilitate that, upskill, train, knowledge transfer, deliver, execute, and leave. You mentioned obviously coaching the exec coaches as well there at the very top. Talk us through the levels of coaching and what's on offer there.
So we sort of work in two directions as a team. We work from very senior MD level downwards the organization, and from the teams upwards. So we meet in the middle. We see a lot of transformations I've seen and experienced where try and do it from the bottom and push up, and it can only go so far to succeed, because the organization organizational control wants to sort of, and processes want to keep it a particular way. So we try and do that, but it's also about how we change people's mindset at the top through one-to-one exec coaching, making sure they have an environment where they feel safe to talk about what they don't know, because they're always expected to know it all. Sometimes I felt like in my role, I was always expected to know all the answers, but providing that environment where they can talk about what they're quite unsure about, what they need help with in knowledge bases, and it also creates that consistent communication across the organization. Hear their bosses talking about agile terminology and they think, oh, well, but maybe I are serious about this. So it really helps that communication of intent and understanding what the teams are doing.
Well, if you've got that one mission, one goal, it's been driven from, the very top down with that golden thread of consistency throughout, then we should rename that the orange thread, shouldn't we? Given the colors, although that may be about to change, but the Emagine name is here to stay, so that's good. Obviously you've talked about the levels there. Give us a case study of the type of program where we would get involved and where the agile practice is at its best.
I think it's at its best to solve the problem that people are. I mean, I think from my experience in banks, in banking, from being a senior leader, the problems the banks are facing is they've got to get quicker at delivering change. Change is constant for them. They obviously they've got a set of disruptors in the marketplace, just putting pressure on them to evolve.
Yeah.
And I think it's looking at those problems and how do you create an environment for them to continually adapt to change, continually be able to react to what the market is doing, the competitors are doing, disruptors are doing, and evolve. And it's a big challenge for them because they've evolved as they have. There's a lot of legacy systems in there, mainframe systems still, and it's all right. Okay, how can we adapt to help you solve these problems? A lot of people say, well, you can't do that with mainframe, but let's challenge that. What's the reasons we can't solve that problem in the mainframe area? Let's really, sit down and be creative and challenge our thinking around that. So.
What about specific areas of the banks or the financial services sector? I mean, is front office easier to go and adopt change than, say, middle and back office? How does it work?
I think it always depends on the environment and the culture of the environment. Front office have a different culture than operations. Finance have a different culture again. It's around adapting to that culture and that environment and changing our way we work to adapt to that as well. I think that's really important to recognize the environment you're working in. And from front office, I've experienced from front office a lot of challenges. When I did my transformation, there was a lot of noise from other people of, you're going to ruin our projects, Nick. I had funnily enough, a senior consultant come in my office and with the head of trading and say, Nick's going to break all our projects. He's changed. She didn't understand what I was doing, but she said, Nick's going to break all our projects. And he said, well, Nick knows what happens if he's a big boy. It's his department. He knows, he knows what he needs to do. And that was fine. It was like I had his backing as long as I succeeded, which I did. And then one thing I think my mindset was, well, these guys have delivered for me in the past. They've been successful in the past. I'm changing the way they work. Why wouldn't they be successful in the future? And why wouldn't they adapt to that? And it's about empowering those people to adapt and change. But it's really around the culture. There's always going to be different circumstances, and we have to adapt as a team to make sure we adapt to that culture that we're working in.
Nice. Okay, cool. Let's talk more about the practice then, and the agile coaches within that. Like, what does it take to be an agile coach for Emagine?
So as I said earlier, we look for three things really. One, that you've had a development background. It could be business analysis, testing, or development itself, or being part of that development cycle.
Yeah.
Two is really you've had the battle scars. You need to understand what the teams are going through in terms of delivery. And then three is around you've done it before in financial organizations. And I think a fourth one is really, I always test what problems people have had to test. As when I used to test project managers, you see CVs of the perfect projects.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what went wrong? I don't want project managers rather coaches who had perfect success through their career. I want them to tell me the problems they've had and how they've overcome them and what they've learned from them. That's the people we're looking for. No, not the pristine, I've done it all and everything else. No, I want you, because it shows you've actually learned from your experience and you've adjusted and you've overcome those problems. That's the type of people we're looking for in the practice, as well as an entrepreneurial mindset. We want people who maybe want to even build their own personal brand, and we can help them do that through videos like this, interviews like this, blogging, podcasts. We really want them to succeed as well as being part of this practice, not just us, but them as well succeeding in it, and help them grow. A lot of the consultants I interview around, well, what's your career growth and how can we help you get there? We've got a huge network of consultants with so many different talent, so much experience. And we need to use that to help mentor other people grow their careers. And that's why we want entrepreneurial mentorship, coaching type people that can really help the practice, the people, and each other grow.
Yeah, and it's those softer skills that are invaluable in today's world, and probably the most difficult to find, if we're being honest. How does the Agile practice fit into the wider consultancy at Emagine then?
So there are 4 practices at Emagine. We're one of those. There is a development practice.
Challenging for the best one.
Well, obviously we're the best. We're the foundation and the founder. So yeah. So anyway, so development one, a risk one, and a change one. So, and that's how we're structured. There's practice leads within that. One must be myself. There's also provide opportunities for practice team leads to manage consultants around that as well. And obviously SMEs as well. We really value SMEs and we bring them into conversations to help us either with clients or help each other on the ground. So.
Yeah, and it's good. It's really nice to see how obviously all of our practices, they have their own alignment and their own way of working and obviously solving technology and business problems for our clients, but ultimately how they work together to cross-train and upskill and have a gig community for each other. So everybody is taking part and responsible for an element of business creation or onboarding new consultants that they work with in the field that they think are excellent. So I think obviously yourself, the practice leads, our senior management team have done a great job in creating this environment that is basically a permanent environment for our consultants, and it's a great internal infrastructure that offers lots of training, lots of support, and lots of upscaling. So it's great for obviously not only our the masses of permanent employees and permanent consultants we've got, but for our associates that come and do projects for us and then go and then come back as well. So it's really pleasing to see. So I'm really,
I think the power of the one practice is everybody moving in the same direction for our clients, because it doesn't, we may be segmented or siloed or whatever the word is people want to use, but we're working as one. So myself and David Shaw work quite closely, development practice, in helping our, during an agile transformation, what are the engineering issues? How can we help you solve that as well? How can David bring his skills of years of development into the client as well? And how does that solve the client's problem holistically, rather than, oh, well, we solved your agile problem, but someone else is going to have to solve that problem over there. It's how we bring a more of a holistic one practice approach to our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the future for Agile then?
That's a really hard question. I think technology's been in Agile for a while. Some places not very well, but I think we're seeing a lot of business now trying to align with Agile practices as well as mindset on how they can adjust their business models to be more reactive to their clients and more agile to their clients. So I see a shift in the organization, not just technology, but the entire organization. And it's gradually moving across, they're just change projects. They do agile to, hey, well, maybe we can run our own operational processes in a better way. Maybe we can reduce the lead time on delivering this particular item to the client. A bit like manufacturing's been through for many years, and seeing how can we be more lean, more agile, give our clients a better service.
Absolutely. And so you personally then, where do you see yourself in 3 years, Nick?
Obviously at Emagine,
Martin. Yeah, naturally.
I think for me, what I would love to see in 3 years is a thriving practice where we are considered thought leaders in financial services. And I love being, one of the things I love about my role is people, when they come to me with a problem, saying we need some help. I love helping people. It's one of my drivers as an executive coach, as well as agile practice lead. Is one of my core drivers is helping people. So that's what I love. And also an environment of consultants that are thriving, growing themselves, growing their own brands, helping each other, and mobilizing across different clients where we can, and where we can see opportunities for them to grow even further. That's what I'd love to see.
Yeah, it's that being recognized as the go-to practice for agile, isn't it? The go-to consultancy for agile, but the practice that listens to you and doesn't dictate what you should do. So I think you guys are doing.
I think there's a lot of consultancies that I've experienced as a leader in a bank where they come in and they leave after about a month and drop very junior graduates, and we have to train them. And there's consultancies who give you a document and say, there you go, we've given you all the thought leadership, you need to execute. But I'm a great believer in the agile practice of revising as well as executing. Let's, we've revised, so let's actually deliver what we said, right?
Yeah,
and execute
completely.
that. And there's a lot of consultancies that aren't working in that model.
No, I think that's what you and the guys do fantastic well in the agile practice for Emagine. All right, Nick, we're nearing the end, but this is my favorite part of the show. Quick fire questions, right?
Ooh.
So what are 3 pieces of advice you would give to your younger self or somebody starting out in the industry now?
I would say, don't be too hard on yourself, especially emotionally.
Yeah.
I think I've loved my career, but there's times you won't love it, and you need to adapt and change. And I see so many people stuck in their careers. I've been a developer, a team lead, a global lead, a executive coach, a agile practice lead now, and it's been an evolution of a career, and it's hard, and it's especially at my age to change careers and change again. It's not easy, but I love it and I enjoy that. I say to my younger self, Nick, because I did get stuck, do what you want to do. Don't be stuck around all the material type niceties of a particular role and the golden handcuffs they keep you in, and do what you want to do, right? And work out for yourself, have a life plan first, because otherwise, and I find there's so many people in their careers, they're completely planned in their careers, but not in their life. And from my perspective, I would plan around my life and then my career around my life. And it's because it's an enabler of life. So, and also work out, create that balance.
Yeah, it's a really important one, right?
And I think that's, in today's environment, it's more of a counterbalance. It's more of a, okay, I work really hard and I really enjoy it, and there's no problem with that. But sort of set those boundaries and also take care of yourself.
Yeah.
In terms of eating, in terms of health, in terms of exercise. Make that time to just take the walk down the road. Create that boundaries of, one of my boundaries was, my boss never called me outside of work hours unless it was an emergency. And he only ever called me once, and that's when Lehman's was unfortunately going under. And I knew there was a major problem for my boss when my wife said to me, "Oh, Mike's on the phone." I was like, that's going to take all weekend, right? So yeah, but other people didn't set those boundaries. And also I said, right, I get up early, go to Canary Wharf, drive to Canary Wharf, exercise, come home, always have that 2 hours with my family in the evenings and the weekends. Setting those boundaries to take care of yourself and counterbalance your work.
Nice, like it. What would you give as a recommendation for a resource for self-development, podcast, book, publication?
Obviously the MD podcast.
Obviously, right?
Obviously.
Naturally.
From a leadership perspective, High Performance Habits by Brendan Bouchard is a really good book. I really like that. If you're thinking about Agile, there's a really good book called Sooner, Saver, Happier.
Nice.
Especially in financial service, because it's written by someone in financial services. Let me just look at my catalog. 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I really, really like that book.
Yeah, it's a good book. Good book.
They're probably the 3.
Nice. Okay, and then the last one is, who's your role model and why?
I think I have different role models, not famous people. So, well, my previous boss and mentor, was a role model on the way he managed relationships as well as his team. His view on how to run it like a business, take my emotions out of the equation. Another one was Jennifer. She very people focused. Took a lot of focus from her on how she was good with people. I learned a lot just by watching her and how did she deal with that. And Abby, she was very structured to my non-structured approach. So she asked me once, Nick, if your client wanted a Ferrari when a Mini would do, you still deliver a Ferrari, wouldn't you? And I was like, well, yeah, because the client wants a Ferrari. So, well, big picture, that's not probably good for the bank's money, right? So she was right, but yeah, it taught me. She was always a bit ahead of me in terms of that structured lean thinking approach, and in terms of the assets and the business value. So yeah, I think there were 3 role models in an environment. So
nice, good. All right, thanks. It's really interesting, really insight. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks very much, Nick. And thanks for sharing your insights. If anyone listening wants to pick your brains, obviously they can reach out to you on LinkedIn. So you're down as Nicholas Foster. And obviously, if anyone wants to get in touch to discuss anything Agile with you, so obviously they can reach you there, and obviously on your Emagine email address.
So just one thing, Martin. Before we go, what's your role model?
My role model in terms of business leadership, my role model is Richard Branson, just because I think he's tried to have fun throughout his career. He's tried to do things the right way, though. He always tries to do everything that is of really good value and is of high excellence. And he is more than happy to say that he's not the best person in the room, but he will always try and hire the best people around them and then empower them to do a really good job and do what they're there to do. So that would be my my role model from a business perspective. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man.
Cool. All right, but thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Obviously, thank you. Good luck with the Agile practice. I have no doubt that's going to be a success. And I obviously really enjoy working with you. So anyone wants to get in touch about that, they can do. And to the listeners, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed listening, enjoyed it, and please share it. pass the pod, but obviously don't tell Crouchy's legal team that I said that. Thanks. Bye.